We'll start in just a few minutes. We're waiting for the executive director's arrival, so it'll be just a minute here, I hope. Okay, I'm going to call the, sorry, I'm sorry. I'm going to call the December 6th Tax Commission meeting to order. Tina, would you mind calling the roll for me, please?
Yes. Commissioner Lippman,
Present.
Commissioner Bursey,
Here.
Commissioner Brown,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Wren,
Present.
Commissioner Byram,
Present.
Commissioner Witt,
Here.
and Chairman DeVold.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we jump into public comment, I apologize for this. My glasses keep fogging up and I've got something fairly long to read here, but I don't know if all of you know, but on December the 5th, former president of the Nevada Taxpayers Association, Carol Ballardo, passed away. And I'd like to just read something into the record from current president Cindy Creighton. So if you could all bear with me for just a moment. Carol was obviously she was a treasure. She was a legend in Nevada tax and somebody that I think just deserves a couple of moments if I can indulge everyone. And this, again, is from the Nevada Taxpayers Association. With great sorrow and a heavy heart, the Nevada Taxpayers Association shares the news of passing of our cherished retired president, Carol Ballardo, this morning in Las Vegas at the age of 80. Anyone who knew Carol found her larger than life. Her remarkable passion and talent had an enormous impact on taxation, spending, and regulatory issues impacting business. Carol has been affiliated with the Nevada Taxpayers Association since 1986. We are extremely grateful for the many contributions Carol Ballardo made to the NTA over her 30-plus year career, expressed NTA Board Chairman Tom Sheets. She genuinely cared for Nevada, and the NTA experienced that firsthand beginning in 1986 when she was hired to oversee the new Southern Nevada office and lobby In 1988, she was named. Her commitment to the NTA extended into retirement with emeritus status on the board of directors, Tom Sheets noted. She was always impeccably dressed and perfectly coiffed. Carol was prominent in the legislature building local government chambers with her signature hats. She was a former two-term chairwoman to the National Taxpayers Conference. She served on numerous state and local government committees addressing issues diverse as water funding, education, debt management, transportation funding, K-12 priorities and funding, and healthcare delivery. Carol served as a public member on 2 legislative interim studies, Nevada tax system, and a Nevada governor's appointee to both the SAGE Commission and the SAGE Blue Ribbon Implementation Panel. A taxpayer's advocate icon, Ms. Ballardo received many awards for her life's work, including Free Enterprise Award presented by the Employers Association of Southern Nevada, the Vegas Chamber Kiwanis Club of Uptown Las Vegas, a Lifetime Achievement Award presented by the Nevada Newsmakers Outreach Foundation, the coveted SIR Award presented by the Associated General Contractors, and the Clark County School District Crystal Apple Award for Exemplary Civic Leadership, the Tax Foundation's Award for Outstanding Achievement in State Tax Reform. She was a careful, creative thinker who read broadly and thought deeply. With Carol's passing, she leaves behind a legacy that will long serve as a benchmark for all Nevadans, said NTA President Cindy Creighton. It was an absolute privilege to be her friend, be inspired by her vision and her guidance, and to listen to her incredible stories and history lessons. While Nevada grieves her loss, the NTA will always honor her memory by instilling her lifetime of work into future generations. To the NTA, Carol Ballardo is our legend. May she rest in peace. And I believe Tom Sheets may be on the line as well. I'd invite him if he has anything to say, but it's a sad day for Nevada taxpayers. She was a walking history lesson and somebody that knew the tax code better than any of us, I'm sure. So she's an amazing lady.
Mr. Sheets is on.
Tom, did you want to say something?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, commission members. The only thing I would add to what was written about Carol and what Jim has had to say is during the long time I was on the commission, Carol really was the gold standard in terms of the institutional memory and history of how and why we got to the taxation situation that we have. She was an invaluable resource to me personally, and to me and the rest of the commission and the staff, and we will all mourn her passing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheets. I appreciate that. At this point, I'd like to ask for any public comment. Anyone that would like to provide public comment, please dial *9 to be placed in the queue. Go ahead, Tina. Is there anyone that would like to provide public comment of any item that's not already on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Director Hughes, could you administer the oath to all parties that plan on testifying today, please?
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's go ahead and approve the meeting minutes. The minutes for the October 4th, 2021 Tax Commission meeting are in the packet. Is there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Wren.
Yes, sir.
I don't. I just want to double check. I didn't hear the oath. I just want to make sure that everybody else did. The clerk reporter got it.
I did not hear the oath.
No.
We'll redo the oath.
Get closer to the speaker.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. For those all present and on the Zoom call, by testifying today, you are swearing to tell the whole truth in the proceedings today. Thank you.
Commissioner Wren, did you hear that?
I did. And having heard that, I would make a motion to approve the October 4th meeting minutes.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Witt, second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Wren, seconded by Commissioner Witt. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is the consent calendar. For those of you on the telephone, it's matters 3A, B, C, D, E. So if your item is in any one of those in item 3, this is on the consent calendar. Are there any items that any of the commissioners would like to pull for further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it's Commissioner Brown.
I would like to pull item C4, please, Pro Glass and Paint.
Commissioner Lippman would like to pull items E3 and 4.
Items E3 and 4. That is Jonathan Snyder and Miguel Piera.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other items? Okay, could I get a motion to approve? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and start with item C4, Commissioner Brown, Pro Glass, and, well, just a second here. Let's go ahead and approve the consent calendar with the exception of those items, and we'll go backwards. Is there a motion to approve all items in 3 with the exception of C4, E as in Edward, 3 and 4?
Commissioner Wren, so
I
moved.
would-
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown, second.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, let's go back to C4, Commissioner Brown, Pro Glass and Paint Incorporated. And I believe Lizette Arceo is around. Go ahead, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I would just point out, and I think I've mentioned this before, and I think it's just a small error on this department's end, but the letter to the taxpayer is already telling them that this item is approved. And I think that this item is not approved until it comes before the commission.
Thank you. That is correct. Yeah, obviously, Director Hughes in the future, make sure that it's contingent upon approval, obviously. So, yeah, thank you, Commissioner Brown. Was there anything else on this one?
No, it's page 220 of our package. If the department's looking specifically for the location of the letter.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With
Would
that,
you
I
like
move
to
to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Commissioner Bursey seconds.
I've got a motion and second to approve item 3C4 Pro Glass and Paint Incorporated. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, very good. Next item is item 3E3, Jonathan Snyder. Commissioner Lippman.
Yes, so as the record reflects, this taxpayer is represented by 2 former commissioners. And so I want to make sure that this taxpayer is treated just as fairly and no more fairly than any other taxpayer. And I know my fellow commissioners, including our former commissioners, would want to ensure that. So when I look at this application, the taxpayer has said that he cannot afford to pay the $300,000 that's due. The application for the offer and compromise has a valuation of his residence of about $477,000. But just a very quick review of the publicly available data demonstrates that this residence is worth, between just looking at 5 different appraisal websites, between $650,000 and $700,000. And indeed, which is about $200,000 more than he represents on his document. His financial statements that were submitted in July of this year also don't reflect that his next door neighbor, or maybe 2 houses down, that house sold in June for $636,000. So that valuation is way off. which indicates that he has about $300,000 of equity in the house. In addition, he says he can't pay any amount or the amount due, but yet on June, and the record reflects significant restaurant, about $3,000 a month, including about 2 weeks before he said he couldn't pay the commission or the Department of Taxation. On June 28th, $125 to Gordon Ramsay. On July 1st, he spent $399 at Palm Las Vegas. July 6th, $114,000 to Total Wine and More. And this is information that he provided us with. On July 6th, $226 to StubHub. So I do commend the Department of Taxation for not accepting the fact that there was doubt as to collectability. So I acknowledge that. However, this offer of $25,000 on about $300,000 due is doubt as to fairness and equity. And I don't understand why this is being inequitable or unfair to Mr. Snyder, when the reason is that the other individuals who are potentially liable, the statute of limitations is run. Well, why didn't Mr. Snyder come forward and let the department know we should be going after these individuals? Plus, as we all know, it's joint and several liability. And so he could potentially go after these other individuals on his own once he suffers the liability. In addition, he didn't collect the sales tax, but his business was at a competitive advantage by not charging sales tax. So I just don't think that this is consistent with other offers and compromises that we have approved. So I am not going to approve this.
Very good. Is there a representative for Jonathan Snyder on the phone?
It's
Yeah.
Tom Sheets.
Yes,
Thank
Mr. There is. Thank you. It's Tom Sheets.
Mr. Sheets, do you have a response to Commissioner Lippman's questions?
I have several comments that I would make to what Commissioner Lippman said, including some of the misrepresentations that she suggests. First, Mr. Schneider is not represented by two former commissioners. He's represented by me, a former commissioner. I happen to be associated as of counsel with a firm known as Cook and Colesis. However, that firm has had little, if anything, to do with the resolution or the attempted resolution of this matter. I'm representing Mr. Schneider pro bono, which means if Commissioner Lippman looks at the statute, because I know she raised this issue previously, she'll find that there's no statutory cooling off period violation of any kind whatsoever, given the way the statute's written. In fact, I'm a little surprised that a law professor at UNLV would not understand what the statutes in Nevada require. Second, with respect to a number of the items that Commissioner Lippman has brought up, the house, for instance, it's a bona fide third-party arm's length appraisal that Mr. Schneider received at the time we made the offer and compromise. Commissioner Lippman may have access to 5 or 6, as she says, appraisal websites. I'd like to know what they are, incidentally. The fact of the matter is, what she doesn't understand is the unfinished projects in the house and the damage inside, which contribute to the lower valuation? Of course, I don't think she took the time to ask that question. In terms of the restaurant charges and things, we fully explained or attempted to fully explain to the department what amounted to an anomaly in terms of the restaurant charges and those things that Mr. Schneider had rung up for some period of time. I don't mean to criticize the department, and I truly mean that I don't mean to criticize the department, but the department made no effort to go after the true responsible party who resides in Colorado. And frankly, if this goes forward, then likely we will have to consider whether we should take a long look at Nevada's reliance on this responsible party statute that seems to be inequitable. We've made a fair, bona fide offer to try and settle this based on what we think, what we think Mr. Schneider can afford at this point and what he can obtain to result in a settlement. It doesn't do the state any good to take a lien and then sit on it for years and years and not collect anything. We're trying to get this taken care of at this point. This is a fine young man who got caught in a situation that he would not mistakenly be caught in again. Frankly, I am surprised and disappointed with Commissioner Lippman's comments, her lack of understanding of the situation, and her position on this. Thank you.
May I respond?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So the letterhead that you have been corresponding with the department on is Cook and Colissus letterhead. And that's the address that we have in all of our records. So that's why that assumption was made. In addition, the 5 different appraisal websites include appraisal websites that the Department of Tax is using in a number of these other offers and compromise and has used consistently. Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Realtor. So, and again, it's publicly available information. But in any case, there's approximately $2 million in sales where sales tax was not collected and turned over to the state. And while it might have been because they didn't understand the laws, that's just not an excuse for not paying about $200,000 in sales tax.
Commissioner or Mr. Chairman, may I make one further comment?
Yes, please.
And I'll be brief. As far as the address is concerned, Commissioner Lippman, you need to check the record. Everything that the commission has sent to me has been to my address at 10170 West Tropicana Avenue, Suite 156-389, Las Vegas, 89137. That's my personal box. It's not Cook and Colissus. And that's where the commission, the department at least, has been corresponding with me. Just so you understand.
Well, we can look at the record. We have it before us.
I know we can, and I urge you to do that because I will produce all the stuff that you've sent me in my Tropicana box. Nothing's been received at Cook and Colissus. So why don't you get off this notion that somehow because George Colissus used to be a commissioner and he's in this cooling off period, that we ought to castigate this taxpayer because of that situation and whatever personal animosity you've got toward Mr. Colissus. Let's get beyond that and let's treat this taxpayer fairly. This guy has gone out of his way to try and make an arm's length fair offer to resolve this and get it off everybody's plate. As I told you, and as you haven't talked to, I don't know why the commissioner of the department didn't really look at the responsible party who lives in Colorado, other than the fact that the pandemic was going on And this fellow lives in Colorado, and it's a lot easier to come after somebody in Nevada. I don't like the way it works, but we've made an offer just to make it go away. And I'd appreciate it if you'd at least give it a fair consideration. Thank you.
I agree 100%. And let's see, page 286 of the 825 pages we have, from the Department of Taxation to Cook and Colesis Ltd. Attention, Tom Sheets. The next page, 288, Cook and Colesis Ltd. Attention, Tom Sheets. I mean, all the correspondence is going to that named law firm.
What's the address and why? Why does it make a difference? Have you read the cooling off statute?
In any case, I appreciate.
No, answer my question. Have you read the cooling off statute? The cooling off statute, Professor Litton. Come on, you're teaching law at the University of Nevada Law School.
Could we,
Mr.
could
Chairman,
we,
this is-
I apologize. Let me stop for just a second here. I apologize to everyone. I believe Rosalie Bordlove researched this item specifically with regard to the walling off of Thomas Sheets and former Commissioner George Colesis. Rosalie, could you tell us what your research found, please?
And then I have a question, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Rosalie Bordlove for the record. I can say in review of ethics statutes and some of the cooling off periods, primarily as far as ethics statutes are concerned, it is the former commissioner's ability to make those decisions. But we did research with the department that this matter was not before the department until after Commissioner Colesis was no longer on the commission. And so with respect, and I can find the exact citation in 281A, but with respect to that cooling off or that provision that requires there not be any representation regarding a matter that was with an agency while the officer was with the agency, it would not apply. Beyond that, there's some provisions in 233B that we looked at. However, as an offer in compromise is not considered a contested case, they would not apply either. But I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, in your opinion, there is no current conflict of interest with Thomas Sheets representing Mr. Snyder?
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Wren, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had some concerns about this carousel, so I definitely want to make sure that we're fair and equitable both with the taxpayer and the state. I also looked at the valuation of this property as an appraiser and thought that didn't necessarily seem right, wrong, or indifferent because I haven't appraised the property. But what tweaked my interest a minute ago was with Mr. Sheets' comment that they had it appraised. I have two questions, I guess, both, I guess, to the state. Have they been presented with a current appraisal on this property? And also, I was a little bit concerned with there's definitely equity in the property. There's equity in retirement funds and whatnot. It just doesn't seem that everybody's on the same page on this one. So, first of all, was an appraisal presented on this property?
Good
Go
morning.
ahead, Lizette. Go ahead, Lizette. I apologize.
No problem. Good morning. For the record, Lizette Arceo, tax manager for the department. To answer your question, Commissioner Wren, the department did not receive any information regarding the appraised property or the home. So we don't have that on the record. We don't have that in our documentation. As far as the retirement, we do have the request where Mr. Snyder had requested to withdraw from his retirement, but was denied because there is no hardship. So because I did ask that question as well regarding the retirement, if there was possibility to withdraw to increase the offer.
Okay, and Ms. Arzette, did the property owner ever indicate to you that this property was in disrepair, poor repair, needed a bunch of work? $500,000 house is typically in pretty good shape, but not always.
Commissioner Wren, I've only spoken to Mr. Sheets, and he did mention that, but we didn't go into detail. But I've only spoken to Mr. Sheets. I've never spoken to Mr. Snyder regarding this account or his liability.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the commissioners to the taxpayers representative or to the department?
This is Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
All I had was I was considering in asking to have this particular item, Jonathan Snyder, set aside. I'll just read you my quick notes. I did not put an okay by it. I went too low, can do better. So in whatever capacity a farmer has to digest all that information, I think the offer's too low and I think he can do better. I didn't read about anybody in a different state. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from any of the other commissioners or comments? Is there a motion?
Commissioner Lippman moves to deny the offer and compromise for Jonathan Snyder.
Commissioner Wren, I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion and second. Any other discussion?
Yes, this is Commissioner Bursey. I don't have a lot to add. I respect Mr. Sheets. He's been a colleague of mine for a long time. I believe what he says. I'm also listening to Commissioner Lippman, and I felt all along that there's a problem with the equity in the home and the amounts of money that were spent on possibly unnecessary meals, large ones. So I'm going to have to vote to deny the offer also.
Any other comments? Okay, so I've got a motion on the floor to deny the offer and compromise for Jonathan Snyder by roll call. Commissioner Byram.
Yay. Sorry.
Yeah, was that yes?
That's an aye. That's a yes. Sorry.
Yes, okay.
Commissioner
Johnson.
Aye.
I apologize. I can't hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Lippman.
Yes.
Commissioner Bursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Wren.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Okay, offer and compromise has been declined. Thank you for your time, Mr. Sheets. Next item was, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher these names and I apologize. Miguel Pereira. Commissioner Lippman, you had a question on that one as well.
Yes, so I appreciate the significant offer on this of $150,000. I did just have a couple questions. One question is, the tax returns indicate that the taxpayer has about $6,000 annually in interest from a charitable remainder trust. I'm wondering if we know anything more about that.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning and taking the opportunity to listen to this matter. I do have an answer to that.
I'm
So
sorry,
when-
could I stop you for just a second? Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Miguel Pereira, Miguel. Last name is Pereira.
Thank you.
Anyways, as I was explaining, the charitable trust, it was something that was left for my brother. He's completely handicapped. So we get payment from family when they passed away back in 2018 for his well-being. That comes in. We buy him clothes. We take care of him. We have to bathe him, bath him. You know, he's 48 years old. He has cerebral palsy, mental retardation. So we have to do everything for him. So that was just something that was left behind for him, for the family to take care of him from our family.
Thank you. Ms. Arceo, is that consistent with your thinking or your understanding?
Morning, for the record, Lizette Arceo for the department. Yes, that's the documentation that we have, the information that we received from the taxpayer as well.
Thank you very much. So with that explanation, I move to approve the offer and compromise for Miguel Pereira et al.
I would second. Commissioner Byram?
Thank you, Commissioner Byram. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? One more item on the consent calendar. Executive Director Hughes had mentioned that we received something early this morning on Juan Orozco Gutierrez. And I was wondering, Director Hughes, could you go ahead and talk to us about the new development, please?
This is Director Hughes for the record. Can Lizette Arceo speak to this issue?
Good morning again, Lizette Arceo for the department. For the Juan Orozco offering compromise, on Friday afternoon or Friday morning, we received an email basically with the taxpayer requesting the offering compromise to possibly be reconsidered or rescinded or remanded back to the department. As their circumstances have changed, they believe that they cannot afford the $70,000 that they've offered. So I know we just want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity as well to provide additional documentation so that we can reconsider this offer. So the department would request that the offer be remanded back.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Arceo. Commissioner Byram, yes.
I would make a motion to rescind the approval of item 3E1 Juan Orozco Gutierrez and remand the issue back to the department.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wren.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Wren. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you. All right, Director Hughes, so anyone that's on the telephone that was on the consent calendar, you're more than welcome to drop off now. Your item has been approved. If you're in items, anyone in item 3, your items have been approved or as otherwise dispositioned.
I see Juan.
I see a couple people still on the phone. Okay. Very good. Item number 4 on the agenda, Division of Local Government Services, Director Hughes.
I think you guys are on mute, Commissioner or
Yeah, I
Chairman.
can't hear anything.
Yep, you were on mute. Oh, try again.
Again. It's item number 4A, Division of Local Government Services, Taxpayers Appeal of the Treasurer's Denial of Waiver of Penalty and/or Interest per NRS 361.4835. Item number 1 is Devere Bar Gall, and we have Jeffrey Mitchell for the department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeff Mitchell for the record. As mentioned with this agenda item, we have an appeal of the denial of waiver of penalty and interest by the Clark County Treasurer. The authority for that is under NRS 361.4835 sub 4. Both the petitioner, Devere Bar Gall, as well as Ken Diaz from the Clark County Treasurer's Office are available for your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Bargal, this is your appeal. Go ahead and make your case, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, to hearing us. Let me start to hearing our appeal. Let me start with a short introduction of myself because I think it's connected to the whole appeal. I'm originally, and once again, I would like to apologize. I'm not a native English speaker, and especially when I'm getting overly excited, like now addressing people, it's my first time ever in this kind of position. So my vocabulary is, I feel that it's shrinking when I'm a little bit overexcited, like right now. I'm originally Israeli citizen, a background in the television making. I've been living in China for the last 20 years, where I used to work. I developed an heritage tourism there. I used to do a lot of heritage project in China. And that's where I met my wife, got married. And in the year 2011, we bought our first property in Las Vegas. And basically we own a house here in Las Vegas for the last 10 years. The first house, we had no issue about it. Since we went all the time between America and China, I made sure from the beginning that all my payments, including utility bills, homeowner associations, that we always had 2 and so on, all will be automatically paid. And so when I'm not here, and most of the year we were not in the house, everything was taken care of. In the year 2016, where my second son was born, we changed the house. We bought another house, and apparently, what I will discover only to my amazement, I discovered only in January of 2021. I mean, almost a year ago, is that I made my first payment to as a bill pay, and that was the only ever bill paid I did through my bank here, and apparently since then, by honest mistake, I oversaw and never made further payments on the tax the housing tax. Sometime in late 2022, let me take it back 1 second. In that year, 2016, when we moved to the new house and we made the first payment, many things had changed in my family. We dealt with my wife's mother that was very sick and eventually passed away. We lived in China, but we had to change the house from one apartment to another apartment. And what I would learn only this year, that all the correspondence from the county, from the tax, went to the wrong address. So basically, we never get any correspondence about taxing or request for payments or any notification about the house here. We basically never got it until until January 2021, when I realized all that happened. Now in 2018, I started to apply for a green card, US green card. We wanted to move with our kids to have a studies here in Las Vegas. And I got it I got the approval for that very quickly, but we've been told that while the Homeland Security approved us, we need to wait for the State Department to basically issue that green card visa. And we were requested, we were suggested by our immigration lawyer to stay outside of the US, not to extend our tourist visa that we usually come to on with this tourist visa. So we went back to China, and then with COVID, we had to leave China. I had to leave my business. It was mostly heritage tourism, which does not exist since COVID started. And we've been in Israel a year and a half, and eventually June this year, we received the full green card and moved to live permanently in Las Vegas. Around the end of the 2020, I start to notice that I don't know what's going on with the housing tax of my house. So I tried to contact the Treasury Department. Few telephone calls were never replied. Eventually, in the third phone call, I believe, almost when I hanged up, somebody picked up the phone finally, and she asked the details of my property, and then she put me in contact with the Deputy Treasurer, Miss Emma Nasi, which I cannot praise enough. Her patience, and she explained to me immediately the situation. She told me that in a few months, our house was about to go to for an auction, that we are late by the 3 or 4 years or so of payments. She explained to me what I need to do to resolve this matter, and the sum of it was, total sum that I owed the county was $9,100 and something US dollar, which I made sure overnight to transfer to my account here in Nevada, and then within 48 hours, all the bill was paid. Part of this, I'm taking fully responsible for my not checking on that, I take responsible, not fully responsible, for not checking on that. It was an honest mistake that I'm happy that I was able to resolve the moment I knew about it. About, I believe, over 2,000 out of the 9,000, around 2,500, if I'm not wrong, was accumulated penalties, interest, and other fees that were posing on us. And I asked the Deputy Treasurer, Ms. Nasi, if there's a way to waive us. I'm not working for 2 years. I'm away from my business. It was an anonymous mistake after all. She told me that I can write to the Clark County Committee. I wrote that letter in late January this year. And by more than 6 or 7 months later, it was denied. And then I was told that my only other aid might be to address this commission. Now, by addressing this commission, I would like to explain and to show that when it comes to our property here, or housing here, the county, the different department of the county, to my opinion, made several different mistakes in which the county, to my opinion, should assume at least partial responsibility to the fact that I never knew that we are behind in these payments, and at least one fact that I will explain in a minute. I never knew about it, so I couldn't even put it to the appeal to the committee. This one I learned only when I arrived back in Las Vegas in late June this year. So my first argument, I would like to make 3 major arguments. First of all, I think when it comes to people's houses, the county have to be very, very sensitive. I asked Mrs. Nasi, how come you never basically looked for us besides sending all the correspondence to address in China that we left? And she told me that according to the law, if there's a U.S. resident, they have to look for him before they actually sending the house for an auction. But if it's a foreign basically ownership, they don't have to look for it, and they basically kept for the 3 or 4 years sending all the correspondences to address. I basically left, and I got no correspondence. I had no knowledge that I own money. This is what I oversee, not to look at it, and I have no knowledge the house is about to be auctioned. Until I basically finally got the phone call, and she explained me the whole situation. I mean, just imagine, let's say I'm dealing with most of our family's financials. Imagine if something would have happened to me. My wife and 2 kids, young kids, don't even know what she owe or what she don't owe, or which different organization. I have mentioned that we change houses, we are in different locations, etc. You will have the wife with the 2 kids homeless, because this is the only ever property that we own. Our family only have the property here, basically. The rest of it we usually leased. So you would have left a wife and 2 kids homelesses because of the honest mistake made, and while the county never even made any effort to look for us further to that location in China that we didn't live anymore. Our neighbors, since 2018, we were not here at all until 2021, 2.5 years, we are not in the house. Our neighbors, very friendly neighbors, and our friend here always came to the house, picking up my mail, checking on the house at least twice a month. If there was any note on the door of foreclosure or of about to get auction or evacuation notice, if you ever made any effort to send a letter to the address here, not to keep sending letters or mailing correspondence to China to address you get no response for, we would know it immediately. I will definitely, and sooner or later, someone will notice me. There's something on the door. There is a mail in your box, a great mail coming from the county. Please pay attention, because basically all our correspondence were collected, and I was notified whatever is going on in my property and my belongings in the US when I left them alone while I couldn't be here. So I think that the county should be very, very sensitive when it comes to auction people's houses. You can leave people with nothing while basically the honest mistakes maybe happened. This is my first argument. My second argument will be, while I'm back now in the US, we went immediately to the second day after we came, I went to the county's office to make sure the property is really listed on my name and everything is straight with the taxing letter. And then I realized that the property even was not written properly on my name, recorded properly on my name by the county's recorder office. My full name is, my first name is Dvir, and my family name is Bargal, B-A-R space G-A-L. This is the way it is recorded in my passport, in my green card to the US, in my social security, in my Nevada driving license. And even the title company who listed the property on my name listed it correctly, Dvir Bargal. But for some reason, the recording office of the county wrote it Gal Dvir Bar. And I came to them, and Ms. Nazi told me this is something I should deal with because it might affect the future sale on the house because it's not written properly, recorded properly on my name. So I went to the recorder office, and they told me, your family name is Gal, it's not Bargal. This is the way it's written here. I said, what do you mean? Look, all these documents, the official documents for Israel, it's always Bargal. So we're going by the title company. I explained to them, look at the title. The title is correct. It says Dvir Bargal. But if it says Bargal and there is no hyphen in between, you are Gal, you are not Bargal. What I'm trying to say about all this matter of it's not a taxing matter, but I'm trying to say that I think that the county's office is very insensitive to people. I mean, there are millions of people in Las Vegas have foreign names, not the original English name or so on. You must be very sensitive and more to understand all that, to understand that people have a lot of investors here. We were never investors. This was our prime home. This is the only home we have. We never rented out or something like that. But you should be very sensitive with foreigners and foreign habits and foreign names even before you making decisions or telling them I cannot change your recorded on the house because you are Gal, you are not Bargal. I mean, I never in my life had to deal with kind of these arguments. Everywhere else it says Bargal properly, and only in the county's office I'm not recorded properly. And my last argument, and that argument I just discovered once again when we arrived back in the US and went to the treasurer's office. I realized that the house all the time here was recorded or assessed for taxing as a rental. And the house where I'm sitting right now was never ever, even one day since we bought it in late 2015, it was never even one day under rent. And the fact it was listed as rental obviously increased our annual tax, and with that increased the interest that it was posing on not paying, and with that increasing the penalties that was opposing us. So if the county don't assume any responsibility for not let us know that the part responsibility of the noting us with behind payments, at least they should recognize that basically they didn't charge us properly for the last 5 years, and they overcharge us for the taxing. Well, these are my three major arguments. I think that the county or the treasurer, the committee, or and now even the tax commissioner of the state, I believe, should consider. I do assume part of the penalties that I should pay, but I think part of it they should be at least recognized and waived. From what
Thank you, Mr. Bargell. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, do you have a rebuttal?
I believe the Clark County Treasurer has a representative.
Okay.
Hello, this is Ken Diaz calling from the Clark County Treasurer's Office. And I'm going to try to address everything that Mr. Bargell brought up. I try to take notes. And I hear what he's saying, and I understand, and I'm sorry for everything that he's had to go through. Several things. First of all, with respect to his name and what have you, that would be handled through the recorder's office. When property is purchased and what have you, it goes through a title company, which the buyer works with, and all that gets recorded. So if there's any issues with the name, that has nothing to do with the treasurer's office. And then as well as the address. The address is any change of address has to go through the assessor's office. And then they provide us with that information. We update the tax records, but we never ever change the address. That's not our role in this whole process. It has to go through the assessor's office. With respect to his being charged the rental cap instead of the residential cap, again, once a year, the assessor's office sends out a tax cap card that has to be filled out, showing whether or not it's your primary residence, which would then give you the 2% cap, and if not, then it gives you the higher cap. And once again, that's handled through the assessor's office. They provide us with the information, and we use that information in order to calculate taxes and send out the taxes accordingly. With respect to Mr. Bargall's experience with the department, like he said, he bought his first first property back in 2011. He bought a second one in 2015. He was current in his property taxes all the way through approximately 2017, 2018. That's when he started becoming delinquent. Again, we will send whether it's a notice or whether it's a tax bill to the address on record, which comes from the owner, and the owner will provide that information. If it changes, that goes to the assessor's office. The assessor's office will provide it to us. And so he has been getting tax bills all along. He's been getting penalty past due notices all along. In his letter to us, he says that our mail-in letters are being collected by our kind neighbors in Vegas, and they let me know when important mail comes in. So even in his letter to us, he's letting us know that he's getting his mail. But again, at the end of the day, when you read statute, if we're working with a knowledgeable property owner, which we are here, this is his second property. It's their responsibility to pay their property taxes, regardless of whether or not they get a tax bill, and that's NRS 361.480.3b. It's their responsibility, regardless of whether or not they get a tax bill, if they're a knowledgeable.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. I appreciate it. Is there any questions from the commissioners of the taxpayer or the department or Mr. Diaz with the Clark County Treasurer's Office?
This is Commissioner Bursey.
Commissioner Bursey.
Just for my own knowledge, I either missed or the information wasn't provided as to what the amounts of the penalty and interest are in this case?
They approximate about $2,000 ish, because it's over 4 years. There's penalties, there's interest, and then there's also some fees here.
And how does that break down, please?
Okay. Let's see. Do you want it by year, or do you want it by whether it's penalty, interest, or fees?
I'd like it broken into penalty, interest, and fees, please.
Okay. Well, penalties looks like it's 2, 4, 6, 7. It's like 80, like 850, maybe 900. 242, 67, 252, 86, 265, 01, 150, 79. Okay, it's 9/11/33. You know, but what I have here is only through when this was actually done. Correct. So, and what I'm giving you is actually as of when the penalty waiver was being considered. So this was back in February of this year, and so those are the penalties as of February of this year. Is there any way? Can you get somebody to run what the current dollars are?
Well, if you're ready, I can go ahead and pull the receipt.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, ma'am. He has paid his tax bill, and so now.
Well, if you just have a total amount, I can do a deduction and come up with a ballpark on the interest.
Okay, you know what? She just. I have somebody here that's getting me some information, and she just took my paperwork, so I no longer have it here. So if you can hold on for a minute, I'd appreciate that. And you know, just a couple more things. You know, we do treat every property owner the same way, whether it's whether it's somebody that lives here or whether it's somebody that lives abroad. We just take the address on record, and we will send documents to the address on record, whether it's here in the U.S. or whether it's in China. And when I look up his parcel, there was a time in there when information was being sent to an address in China. So. You know, and then also, you know, again, the thing we need to consider here is this has been ongoing since 2018. And I know the whole COVID thing happened like last year, but, you know, with the Treasurer's Office, you know, the checks could have been sent in, payments can be made via web. We've got an IVR, a voice interactive voice response system where payments could have been made. So again, it goes back to the responsibility of the reasonable property tax owner or property owner to know that property taxes are due. Okay. Here.
Mr. Chairman, may I jump in here, please?
You know what? I think we're going to take a quick break here while the Clark County Treasurer comes up with a number, and then we'll come back.
If I could just say something, I think
could I please take a 10-minute break, please? I think we understand what the issue is perfectly.
No, but Mr. Diaz was mistaken by the fact he's saying that my letter was collected here, but the letters were sent to China. It's
kind of irrelevant, Mr. Bargal. You know, the taxes are due whether you get the tax payment or not. It's kind of irrelevant. It's your responsibility to pay the taxes.
I understand that. And as I said, I'm taking responsibility for that. But I think that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're on a 10-minute break, Mr. Chairman.
10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and reconvene. Let's see, Mr. Diaz with Clark County Treasurer's Department, did you come up with the numbers for Commissioner Bursey?
Yes, we did. We came up with the exact numbers. For penalties, it was $912.88. For interest, it was $1,106.08 for a total of $2,018.96. And then there were also fees for $78.
Thank you for finding that.
Mr. Chairman, I have just a quick question.
Commissioner Rand, go ahead.
Okay. For Mr. Mitchell, I understand everything that's happened in this case and in the problems with people being out of country. But I'm also very interested in making sure that we have true equalization. What are the repercussions, if you will, of having assessed this property throughout the years as a rental property instead of as a primary residence? And I guess depending on what we do today, what are the property owners' ability to make sure that gets changed and argue those points?
Yes, so with the property tax abatement, there is an appeal process that is available to the taxpayers to appeal. And the classification of between a residential and a rental and which class you would qualify for isn't an appealable event. It has to be received 30 days after the tax bill is due. And so previous years, unfortunately, is not available. But for upcoming years, that appeal route, as well as just contacting the assessor's office and getting that changed, would instigate that and have that changed fairly quickly.
And you might not be able to answer this, but what would be the approximate monetary differences over those years if it had been assessed properly?
You'd have to look at the difference between the residential cap as well as the commercial cap for each of the years that this would qualify for. Clark County has not been at the 8% cap for quite some time. So we're looking at a cap percentage of probably a difference of around 2 to 3% each year. Again, that's if the property actually qualifies for the abatement and the growth there. So it would take a lot of looking into see how much exactly that would equate to.
Commissioner Bursey, you had a question?
Yes, I think this would go to the department. Just remind me quickly, what are the grounds, what would the grounds be to approve the taxpayer's appeal?
The grounds in your consideration is found under NAC 361590. And I'll just read that verbatim if that's okay. The department may waive or reduce the penalty or interest for a delinquent payment of property tax, which is imposed pursuant to NRS 361.483, which these are, if it finds that the proximate cause of the delinquent payment was A, circumstances completely beyond the control of the taxpayer who is required to make the payment or the agent of the taxpayer, B, justifiable neglect or justifiable inadvertence, and that the taxpayer making the payment has no history or habitual delinquent payments, or C, for any good other cause shown. And then it provides some guidance on what completely beyond the control of the taxpayer would be. And that is found in sub 3. In determining whether or not circumstances which caused the delinquent payment in any particular case were completely beyond control of the taxpayer required to make the payment or agent of the taxpayer, the department shall consider only evidence which shows that the delinquent payment was proximately caused by fire, earthquake, flood, or other acts of God, theft, or similar causes not directly related to the actions of the taxpayer who is required to make the payment or agent of the taxpayer, whether intentional or not, and that the tax was paid as soon as reasonably possible thereafter. In these circumstances, all of the penalty or interest or both will be waived. If the department finds that the proximate cause of delinquent payment was justifiable neglect or justifiable inadvertence, and that the tax was paid as soon as reasonably possible thereafter, the penalty or interest imposed for the delinquent payment will be reduced to a total of not more than 50% of the penalty or interest imposed. In determining whether the proximate cause of the delinquent payment was for other good causes shown, the department will require the taxpayer to submit without limitation evidence that the tax was paid as soon as reasonably possible, and that the assessment of penalties and interest constitutes an extreme financial hardship, is extremely unfair, or extremely inequitable under the circumstances. And as used in this section, extreme financial hardship means that the taxpayer who owes the tax has the present ability to pay the tax, but payment of the penalties and interest will render the taxpayer insolvent.
Thank you. Based on that, I would move to approve the taxpayer's appeal of the treasurer's denial of waiver of penalty and interest in this case.
I've got a motion.
Commissioner Witt, second.
Okay, I've got a second. Just so I'm clear, Jeff, did I hear that we can approve not up to 50% of the penalty and interest? Did I hear that correctly? Not 100% of it, but 50% of it.
It depends under what action you believe that the waiver of penalty and interest is due.
I gotcha. Okay.
If it's beyond the control of the taxpayer, you can waive up to 100%. If it was justifiable neglect that you think that this falls under, you can waive up to 50%.
Okay. Okay, very good. I've got a motion and second on the floor. Is there any other discussion from any of the other commissioners?
Yes, this is the maker of the motion. It was my understanding there were two other grounds other than beyond the control. And I would like to find in those grounds a way to waive the 100% of the penalty and interest. If I'm wrong, then I guess I would, since I don't believe it was beyond the control of the taxpayer, I would have to include in my motion 50% of what's owing.
With Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
Under NAC 361590, the three areas are the circumstances completely beyond control, justifiable neglect, or for any good cause shown. So under complete out of control, you can go up to 100%, for justifiable neglect up to 50%, and it's silent on the for any good cause. So I believe that is for your discretion.
I'm just going to leave, I will amend my own motion then to say that I'd like to move to approve the taxpayer's appeal of the treasurer's denial of waiver of penalty and interest at 100% of the request.
So that's, just so I'm clear, it's the $2,018.96.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And remind me, who was the second?
Commissioner Witt, second again.
So you're okay with the amendment, Commissioner Witt? Okay.
Yep.
I've got a motion.
Are we allowed to make any more comments?
Go ahead, Mr. Diaz, you've got 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay. I do appreciate your time today. I know your time is valuable. I also appreciate, the use of the statutes and what we have to work with. But I also would like to caution that, we never want to set a precedent on something. Again, I'm going to reiterate that these are unfortunate circumstances for him, but as a knowledgeable property owner, he knew he knew that he had property taxes that were due, and the fact that it was outstanding for 4 years, you know, to me seems unreasonable. And we did make attempts. We sent the letters to the address on record, which would have come again from the property owner. So, you know, there are procedures in place which we followed. And again, you know, I just don't want to set a precedent, because if we approve something like this, then it opens it up for everybody else after this. And I want you to keep in mind that all the work that we have to do to follow up on these properties, all the notices that we have to send out when we get them ready for auction, all the postage, and putting everything in the paper saying that these are delinquent parcels that are getting ready. There's so much that goes into it. It's time consuming. It utilizes a lot of resources, and so I just want all of that to be considered.
I think your 2 minutes is up. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. You kind of rehashed exactly what we talked about for about the last 30 minutes. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to call for a roll call vote. Commissioner Byram.
I did want to make a comment first, if I could.
Please. Yes.
To Mr. Bargal, I think that your presentation was very good, and you are articulate, and we could understand all of it. So that was your concern. You did mention 3 issues that you had. One of them was the name, and that's not something that we can resolve for you. You need to contact the recorder's office and get it corrected. I bought property in Las Vegas before, or in Henderson, and it was recorded with my name misspelled. It's just a matter of going and contacting them and saying, this is how I want my name represented. And as far as the value and the issue with it being considered a rental, as Mr. Mitchell said, that's a valuation matter, which we don't hear. That's a Board of Equalization matter, but the time has closed for prior periods. But going forward, make sure you get that card and submit it, and then you will get the proper valuation going forward. That's not a matter we can resolve. The only matter we can resolve is penalty and interest. And that is the motion, and hope that you understand that we aren't able to make the other issues, to resolve those today, as our body is a policy setting body. And that's the only issue that we have in front of us, is the penalty and interest. And with that, I will vote yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
I would vote yes.
Commissioner Brown.
No.
Commissioner Lippman.
No.
Commissioner Bursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Wren.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt. Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
And chair votes no. Motion passes 5-3. Mr. Bargal, please pay your taxes on time in the future. And Mr. Diaz, we appreciate your attendance today. Okay, next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is item 4B, consideration for approval of agricultural application packet forms. Kelson Powell is representing the department.
Morning, Mr. Powell.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. I'm Kelson Powell, Property Appraiser 2, Local Government Services for the record. Per NAC 361A-110, the Tax Commission is tasked with the approval of the Agricultural Use Assessment Application Form. Accordingly, before you today for approval is a revised Agricultural Assessment Application and Instruction Sheet and a Declaration of Rural Land Classification Form, which has been submitted for your information. The department worked with the Nevada Assessors Association to revise the current agricultural use assessment application, instruction sheet, and accompanying information. The application has had questions added to reduce the need to request further information from the taxpayer in order to make a qualifying determination. Additionally, several existing questions have been reworded to make them more taxpayer friendly. Also, the formatting has been changed to give it a cleaner look and allow for an option to fill it out electronically. For the information and instruction sheet, a few changes have been made, which are indicated in blue italics, and statutory references have been included for the taxpayer's information and convenience. The Declaration of Rural Land Classification Form has been provided for your information as well. Currently, the department and the counties are using various methods to receive additional supporting documentation as permitted by NAC 361A.130. To create more standardization statewide, the department will be sending this document to all assessors and making it available on our website for their use. The department will also be replacing our version of the Declaration of Rural Land Classification with this one. We have provided copies of the previous forms for your convenience should you wish to review and compare. We held a public workshop on November 23rd to receive input and feedback. Comments were received and incorporated in the form before you today. We request your approval of the revised agricultural use assessment application, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Any questions of Mr. Powell? Commissioner Witt?
This is Commissioner Witt. I would move to approve the amended document.
Commissioner Lippman seconds the motion.
Okay, I've got a motion and second to approve agricultural application packet and forms. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Thank you, Mr. Powell. Director Hughes, next item.
Next item is item 5A, the Compliance Division Department's recommendation to the Commission for denial of an offer and compromise pursuant to NRS 360.263. The first item on the agenda is Warren Kieran, and we have Lizette Arceo representing the department.
Good morning, Ms. Arceo. Go ahead and introduce this case for us, please.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Commission. For the record, Lizette Arceo, Tax Manager for the department. And I believe the taxpayer and his representative are on the line as well. Warren Kerwin has submitted an offer in compromise for the debt on Game Haven, Nevada LLC, a Nevada limited liability company, which began operations on January 1st, 2011 and closed on May 31st, 2012. The offer is to pay a total of $2,400 in monthly $100 payments. The current liability is a total of $58,697.63, of which $28,102.83 is tax. The reason for the request is doubt as to collectability. Mr. Kerwin states he does not have the money or the assets to pay in full and cannot afford to pay more than the $100 a month. A review of the account document and the documentation submitted and the department research revealed that the reason for the request is not supported. Mr. Kerwin's personal financial statements show that his monthly disposable income is roughly $1,800. Mr. Kerwin is employed full-time and owns real property in Clark County. Additionally, Mr. Kerwin's 2009 and 2018 federal income tax returns report an increase in wages. In his letter of explanation to the department, Mr. Kerwin stated that he has medical conditions, however, providing no supporting documentation. Based on the facts presented, it is recommended that the Nevada Tax Commission deny the offer for the sales and use tax period stated, as there is no doubt as to collectability. I'm happy to answer any questions from the Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Arceo. Is the taxpayer or his representative on the line, Warren Kerwin?
We are on the line, yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and make your case for us, please.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time and attention on this matter. Mr. Kerwin, my name is Bruce Gardner, by the way. I'm Mr. Kerwin's CPA. He's 60 years old and he has a history of poor health. We made an offer and it was rejected. We were never given an explanation as to why it was rejected, and we don't know who was on the committee or the board or whatever it is who decides to accept or reject. But we feel like we made a fair offer based on what Mr. Kerwin could afford considering his health issues. I think I want to have Mr. Kerwin, who's in the room with me, explain what his health issues have been and what they're going to be. Because we needed, what we really wanted to do is come to some sort of agreement or a new dollar amount as to what the state would accept for his offer and compromise amount. So I want to have Mr. Kerwin take a moment to explain what his health conditions are.
Good morning. My name is Warren Kerwin. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. In the last 10 years, I've had over 10 cardiac surgeries. And in the last 12 months, I've had 2. Every time I have cardiac surgery, my insurance doesn't pay for everything, so I have out-of-pocket expenses that I have to pay. From the last 2 surgeries, I have an additional $3,000 that I've got to come out of pocket to pay for. I've lost, cardiac. My condition is that it's a fatal disease, even though. It's not like cancer where you say, well, okay, you've got 3 years to live or whatever. Is that I've had 2 heart attacks. I've lost 20% of my heart function. I could at any moment have another heart attack, and I could lose my life, or I could lose another 50% of my heart muscle, and then now I'm going to be in a wheelchair and on oxygen and that kind of stuff. So I have these expenses that I know that I currently have for my last 2 surgeries, but I know that as my life progresses, I'm going to have other issues, and consequently, I can't afford to pay a lot of money. So that.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Kerwin. So to continue with that, I want to make 2 comments. In the packet that we gave the state, there's of course the state's document that shows that his net difference in his income and his expenses is $1,800, which was pointed out. Also in that package, we included actual financial statements where we went through for everything that Mr. Kerwin had, any money collected and any money that he had to pay out for his expenses for September through December of 2020. And we don't know how close of attention the state paid to that. And the reason I bring it up is because the document that the state provides for a personal financial statement doesn't include spaces for all of the expenses that he actually had. For September through December, he actually had a decrease in his bank account of $1,234. So that, in conjunction with his health issues and the issues we're having, or that he's having with health and not knowing what his future expenses are, is why we offered $2,400, which is $100 a month. And we just wanted to talk to the Department of Taxation, see if we could come up with something that we could all agree with.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Is there any questions of the department or the taxpayer?
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Please. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I would just point out that my review of the documentation for this case indicated that the W-2 income on the tax return was in excess of $100,000. And I would also noted some gambling income as well that caused me to take note.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of questions for the taxpayer.
Commissioner Johnson? Yes, thank you.
Yes. Now, there seems to be a lot of expenses on the credit card receipts and things for meals and other things that might be considered either a business expense or maybe just personal expenses. Can you explain, based upon your employment, whether these type of expenses are something that you consider business expenses, or are they just personal expenses?
Yes, thank you. Those are business expenses. Mr. Kerwin is a salesman for Carpets and More, and so he has business expenses that he has in trying to gain accounts and things like that. So there are numerous expenses on the credit card that are not personal, but they are in fact business.
Okay. And is that reflected on his tax returns?
No, they're not reflected on his tax returns because there's no place on a tax return anymore to report unreimbursed employee business expenses. Those are simply no longer allowed, and so that form is obsolete. You don't report that anymore, and that's why I included a profit and loss in his package that shows what all of his revenue and expenses truly were. Because on your personal financial statement form, there's no spaces for all of those.
And is it company policy that he's not reimbursed for these expenses?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Byram. I have a question for the taxpayer. During the time this is pending, has the taxpayer been making good faith efforts to pay down the debt?
Unfortunately, no. When I lost the business, I had to file bankruptcy, and so I didn't have the funds to do it. And then after that, my mother was diagnosed with dementia, and I became her caretaker and had to pay for her expenses, or portion of her expenses that Medicaid and Medicare or Medicaid didn't cover. And so she had housing expenses that I had to put her into a nursing home and pay for that because Medicaid wouldn't pay for the majority of it I think it took a while to get appeals process and everything else through Medicaid, but it took about 1.5 years to 2 years that I had to pay out of pocket for that. So no, I think I did make some little payments here and there when I was, before I had to file bankruptcy and that kind of stuff, but I have not.
Okay, any other questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Byram, I would move to uphold the department's recommendation and deny the offer in compromise. I think that a better offer can be made.
Commissioner Brown will second.
Okay, I've got a second from Commissioner Brown. Any other discussion?
Commissioner Lippman, I just want to let the taxpayer and his CPA know that the department is more than willing to have a discussion about what would be an appropriate offer. And they will take into consideration the significant health issues. So just document that. And I have no doubt Ms. Arceo and you can come to a meeting of the mind. So thank you.
I would agree with that. Good comments, Commissioner Lippman. Okay, I've got a motion and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay, the commission has upheld the denial for the offer and compromise, and we encourage Mr. Gardner and Mr. Kerwin to recontact Lizette Arceo and work out a new offer and compromise agreement. Director Hughes, next item.
The next item on the agenda is item 5B, approval of refund credit request in excess of $250,000. The first item under this agenda item is Allegiant Air LLC, and we have Jairam Singh representing the department.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jairam Singh, Audit Manager for the department. Allegiant Air filed a timely request for refund of modified business tax in the amount of $448,543.32 by amending its return for the third quarter of 2019. Allegiant Air overreported gross wages for two reasons. First, it did not claim its health insurance deduction, and second, it did not apply its scholarship credit. The department reviewed it, amended returns, explanation, and support, and agreed that the modified business tax was overpaid and recommend approval for the refund. I'm available for questions, and the taxpayer presence was requested.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Commissioner Witt, move to approve.
Brown.
Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Brown seconds. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? I'm sorry, Commissioner Bursey, you were trying to say something?
No, finish. I just had a comment after the motion is taken. I'm sorry.
Okay, I apologize. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, Commissioner Bursey, motion passes. Commissioner Bursey?
Yes, I would just like to commend the staff for the format and the substance and the brevity of the presentation on these refund requests. I think they've taken a different look, and I appreciate looking at 12 to 16 pages instead of 50. So thank you very much.
I'm going to echo that sentiment, Commissioner Bursey. Thank you to the staff. Director Hughes, next item.
And the next item is 5B2, EGP, Stillwater Solar PV LLC. And again, we have Jairam Singh for the department.
Again, Chairman, Commissioner, for the record, my name is Jairam Singh, Audit Manager with the department. EGP Stillwater Solar PV LLC filed a timely request for refund of use tax in the amount of $269,676.25 by amending a return for the month of November 2017. EGP Stillwater Polar LLC reported and paid use tax on multiple transactions. However, per signed agreement with Santerno Inc. and M.A. Mortensen, two companies which are registered with the department, are responsible for all the taxes to include sales and use tax. The department reviewed the amended returns, explanation, and supporting documents, and agreed that the use tax obligation of Santerno Inc. and M.A. Mortensen, which are contractors. As such, the payment made by the taxpayer is determined to be overpayment, and the department recommends approval for refund. I'm available for any questions. And the taxpayer's presence has been requested.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
This is Commissioner Wren. Move to approve.
Commissioner Witt,
Johnson,
second.
Okay, I've got a second by Commissioner Witt. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, very good. Director Hughes.
Item 5B3, Taser International. We have Guy Childers.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
For the record, my name is Guy Childers, Audit Manager with the department. Tasia International filed a timely request for a refund of sales tax in the amount of $487,144.90 by amending returns for the months of October and December 2019, which were within the fourth quarter of 2019. Taser overreported taxable sales for two reasons. First, Taser charged tax on a sale to a tax-exempt entity in Nevada. And two, in seeking to correct the error, they mistakenly reported the same amount of the sale again and paid the tax. In both cases, the overpaid sales tax was not collected from the customer. The department reviewed the amended return, explanation, and support and agreed that the sales tax was overpaid and recommends approval for refund. I'm available for question. The taxpayer's presence has been requested, and I believe a representative may be on the line.
Thank you, Mr. Childers. Is there any questions of the taxpayer or the department? Is there a motion?
Commissioner Witt, move to approve.
Second,
Commissioner
Commissioner Brown.
Lippman, seconds.
Okay, so I heard Commissioner Lippman, the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very good. Director Hughes.
Item 5B4, CSAA General Insurance Company. For the department, we have Brandon Mackey.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Brandon Mackey, Tax Program Supervisor for the Nevada Department of Taxation. Today, the department is recommending approval of a credit refund in the amount of $686,327.93 for overpayment of insurance premium tax for CSAA General Insurance Company for the tax year 2020. After processing the taxpayer's reconciliation return for the 2020 tax year, the department reviewed and verified the taxpayer filed and paid their quarterly insurance premium tax returns timely. However, they overreported and overpaid their quarters for March 31st, 2020, September 30th, 2020, and December 31st, 2020. This was discovered by the taxpayer when they filed their annual reconciliation return, creating a credit and a refund request. The department has applied, or the taxpayer has applied their earned credits throughout the tax year as referenced in NRS 680B 050 for the home office credit and NRS 687A Property Casualty Guaranteed Association credits. These credits were reviewed and verified by the department, and I am available for any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Any questions of the department? Is there a motion?
Commissioner Lippman moves to approve the refund for CSAA General Insurance Company.
Commissioner Bercy, seconds.
Okay, I've got a motion and seconded by Commissioner Bercy. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Director Hughes, next item.
Next item is 5B5, New Hampshire Insurance Company, and the department has Brandon Mackey representing.
Good morning again, Commissioners, Chairman and Commissioner. My name is Brandon Mackey, Tax Program Supervisor for the Department of Taxation. Today, the department is recommending approval of a credit refund in the amount of $457,633.60 for the overpayment of insurance premium tax for New Hampshire Insurance Company. After processing the taxpayer's reconciliation return for the 2020 tax year, the department reviewed and verified the taxpayer filed and paid their insurance premium tax returns timely. However, they overreported and overpaid their March 31st, 2020 and September 30th, 2020 returns. This was discovered by the taxpayer when they filed their reconciliation return, resulting in an overpayment and a refund request from the taxpayer. I am available for any questions.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah, I've got a motion by Commissioner Wren, seconded by Commissioner Lippman. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Very good. Director Hughes, next item.
The next item is 5C, Taxpayers Appeal of Administrative Law Judge's Decision pursuant to NRS 360.245 and NAC 360.175. The only item under that agenda item is Zachary and Jennifer Rice. We have Michael Vietz, Deputy Attorney General, representing the department, and I believe the taxpayers are on Zoom.
Okay, very good. Is Zachary and Jennifer Rice on the Zoom call?
Yes, good morning. This is Zachary Rice, for the record, Zachary and Jennifer is not here.
Okay, this is your appeal. Go ahead and make your case.
Yes, so we have some concerns with the conclusion that the judge made during this process. First of all, we offered evidence under hearsay in which that the judge basically dismissed the evidence that we provided. She stated that evidence must be of a type commonly relied on by reasonable and prudent persons in conduct of their affairs, and that our hearsay testimony does not qualify for any of the hearsay exceptions. However, no reasons were given as to why our hearsay testimony did not qualify. And I do consider myself to be a reasonable and prudent person in the conduct of my affairs. So I'm not really sure what grounds the judge had to dismiss our testimony. Second, the seller offered a letter explaining their business. The judge found that the letter from the seller did not describe its business. The letter basically just stated that the seller of the boat was not a dealer or the boat was not repossessed. I do not understand why a seller of a boat would not know whether or not they are a dealer. So if someone states in a letter that they are not a dealer, I'm not really sure what other type of evidence needs to be provided. The letter also concludes that because that they are not a boat dealer or a boat broker, that a use tax is not due. That conclusion is based on the website offered by the Department of Wildlife, in which it specifically states that if a boat seller is not a broker or a dealer, then no sales tax is due. Yet the judge seemed to want to dismiss the conclusion that we made. However, that exact same conclusion was offered by the Department of Wildlife from the state of Nevada. The last point I'd like to make is the department's case is based on the website of the seller, stating that they offered the boat for rental. The boat that I purchased is a 23-foot surf boat, and on their website, specifically to the 23-foot surf boat, that boat is not made available for rental. That boat is only used for instruction and for tours, so it is never provided to their patrons as a rental craft. They do currently do offer other boats for rental. All of those boats are smaller, less capable, less costly. So I think it is an important point that the boat that we are talking about, as far as whether or not use tax is due, was never rented and still is not made available for rent by the seller. So those are the points I wanted to make, and I am available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Let's see, Mr. Vietz, do you have a response?
Yes, I do. And I heard a couple of points there from Mr. Rice. The first of which was the ALJ's decision regarding their testimony, and that it sounded like he hadn't seen or believed that there wasn't a justification for why their testimony was not given greater weight when offered for the ALJ. On page 6 of the ALJ's decision, the ALJ did address that. I can understand there might be disagreement on the weight afforded to evidence proffered, but the ALJ did address that. with regard to their testimony about the operations of the business. At the core of this is a claimed exemption for the occasional sale exemption.
Excuse me, I cannot hear. Your voice was fine at first, but it's faded out and I'm not able to hear anything now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Not very well.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. If at any point I'm lost again, please just let me know. I apologize for that. I'm not sure why it stopped working. For context in this case, the sale of the boat, the Rices believed that the sale of the boat was qualified for an occasional sale exemption. Pursuant to that, when the ALJ was considering whether or not the occasional sale exception applied to this case, there was evidence offered by the Rices with regard to the seller's business. That testimony, which was the first point that I recall Mr. Rice bringing up, pertained to the operations of the business. Mr. Rice had indicated that he did not see or did not believe that there was an explanation for why their testimony about the business's activities was written off. And it is, from my review of the record in the ALJ's decision on page 6, which explains that because of their limited contact and only one transaction with this business, and if I recall correctly from the record, that a lot of the Rice's understanding of the business operations was based on phone calls with the seller, that hearsay testimony would not be used or was not found to demonstrate that the seller or the sale in this particular case qualified as an occasional sale. The second point, or one of the major points that I heard Mr. Rice expressing, was that there was the basis of a decision on a website. And I think that not only was the seller's website used in forming this decision to find that the tax was due and that the occasional sale did not apply, but it was also the statement of the purchaser themselves. In the seeking of a refund in this case, the Rices submitted to the department a letter on the 24th of July of 2020. And in paragraph 3 of that letter, the Rices submitted that the primary purpose of the seller's business is to teach people skills in various water sports such as skiing, wakeboarding, etc. And as an ancillary form of revenue, the business will also rent equipment to the clientele, including said boat referring to the boat in this case. It was upon this information, along with the seller's website and the absence of contradictory information that the ALJ found reliable, that the ALJ found that the occasional sale did not apply as an exception in this particular case, and that the tax was due. For that, I believe we've addressed and identified within our brief to the commission the other points that were brought up in the filings by the Rices, and I would open up to, or I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have on the point.
Thank you. Mr. Viets, is there any case regarding this, a transaction similar to this?
With a short answer, no, because the only cases that I'm aware of happen to involve airplane parts and the sale of airplane kits, and to that airplane kit maker, the sale of a plane, which was used in interstate commerce. So as far as a direct case on boats and the tax exemption applicable there too, no, there's not one that's directly on point, but for the case law that I have reviewed, I didn't see anything within it that would suggest that this particular case should have come out any differently.
Is there any questions of the taxpayer or Mr. Viets from the tax commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Byram.
Commissioner Byram, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I have a question for the Attorney General side. Has there been a change in the occasional sales exemption in the past 20, 30 years? The criteria that I see in the brief is the 2 or more transactions, or is it 3 or more transactions in a rolling 12-month period?
I believe to go to the first question of the commissioner, I don't believe I've seen a change in that in the last 30 years. To go to the second question of the number of sales that's pertinent to the determination of whether or not someone's a retailer and therefore must have the retail license, which is part of the component for whether or not there's a occasional sale. That language, I believe, reads, if I recall correctly, is 2 or more sales or more than 2 sales in any 12-month period.
Right, so it's a rolling calendar year.
Yes.
So, okay.
Well, forgive me, I'm not sure.
Even though this this business is located outside of the state of Nevada, you're still applying an occasional sale analysis, right, to this?
Correct. The claimed exemption was the occasional sale.
Okay, so let me just ask another question. I had an occasional sales case in front of the tax commission, and it's been 30 years, and that was my reason for asking. But the criteria is threefold. It's like, kind, and character. Or I'm sorry, it's like, kind, and number.
Yeah.
So you've got the number. You've already determined that there's a number, but like and kind. So the analysis would then go to, is this business selling 2 or more or 3 or more boats every year? They're in a business of selling training, and they're in the business of selling hours of use and rentals, but they're not in the business of selling boats as a retailer. So unless someone has gone and audited them and looked at how many boats, you can't just say that you've got an hour rental here, an hour rental here, a class there, and these are a couple $100 transactions, and then all of a sudden you have the sale of a boat. That is the question, is how many sales of boats of the same like, kind, and character do they have? Because it's not just the number that's applicable. And so if that analysis applies to an out-of-state vendor, which I'm not sure how it could if you're not able to go and audit them to see how many transactions of the same like, kind, and character, then I think that the occasional sales exemption does apply. It makes it more akin to a private party sale. Does that make sense? Are you finding that criteria?
I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. So
I could tell you the case if you wanted to look it up.
I'd welcome it.
Pardon me?
I would welcome it.
Oh, okay. Do you want that now or separately, or?
If it's a case that I might be familiar with offhand, I might.
Okay, it's Newmont Mining Corporation. And it's the roaster refractory ore treatment plant sales and use tax assessment, which was deemed by the tax commission to be an occasional sale and or a financing transaction and not a sale. It was a sale leaseback. So the occasional sales analysis applied, and that was the criteria. Yes, there are pickup trucks sold by the company, and there are, logo items sold in a company store. So there is sales, and there's multiple sales in a month. But a sale of a $300 million facility is not the same like, kind, and character as a pickup truck or a sweatshirt. So the analysis is you have a rental, a class, and then a sale of a boat. That is completely different from a rental and a class.
So I think I understand the question now, and I appreciate the explanation on point from what sounds like a personal experience in representing and arguing that point. While the occasional sale exception may not have changed in the last couple of years, I am familiar with the code that says that for the purposes of Chapter 360 and NAC, that a rental constitutes a sale.
Yes, I agree. A rental is a sale, but a rental is not the same as a sale of the actual boat. Those are not the same like, kind, and character of transaction.
I have reviewed the statutes and case law coming up to this point. I have not seen, for the purposes of exceptions, that the rental distinction, which is a sale for the purposes of Chapter 360, which is where we find ourselves for these exceptions, is distinguished in that way. Did that case, this Newmont Mining Corporation, hold as much? That a rental is not equivalent to a sale for the purposes of the occasional sale exception?
I think it's a little broader than that. It was that, what are you selling? Are you selling a $2,000 item, a $2,000 truck, a $30 shirt, or a $300 million facility? So there's a difference in the nature of the transaction. They don't occasionally rent out, well, a $300 million thing compared to a $20,000 or $30,000 thing. At a few $100s per transaction, all of a sudden you're selling the actual underlying equipment. That's an occasional sale, because they're not in the business of selling boats. They're in the business of renting boats and providing classes or training. I'm just going to leave it with you at that. I don't want to argue it, but I wanted to just mention that there's other criteria involved I didn't see analyzed, and I don't think the law has changed, but that might be worth looking at.
And Commissioner, I appreciate that input, because I'd like to make sure that the appropriate tax is assessed here. But that is, I think, what I was interested in knowing for that Newmont Mining Corporation, is because for the purposes of Chapter 360 and NAC 360, I've not seen a distinction drawn where a rental does not constitute a sale for exceptions.
No, I'm not saying a rental doesn't constitute a sale. A rental is a sale. It's a sale of a small amount of time using a piece of equipment. That's different than buying the entire piece of equipment, selling the entire piece of equipment. So a rental is a sale, absolutely. I agree. I don't know how you would apply an occasional sale exemption to an out-of-state business, because you aren't going in and auditing that business. I don't think you have jurisdiction to. So I don't know how you're able to correctly apply that without being able to audit them and see how many boats they're selling. Because if they're selling more than 3 boats in a year, then it would meet the criteria to be taxable. But if it isn't 3 sales of boats or other major equipment, then it wouldn't constitute the exemption.
Commissioner, I think I understand the position. And I think that I would stand by the ALJ's decision in this matter, because I have not seen such a distinction that for the purposes of occasional sale exceptions, that a rental is treated differently than a sale in this particular case, even though for every other purpose within Chapter 360 and NAC, a rental is a sale. And that is a distinction that, if the Supreme Court has made that distinction or recognized such a distinction, then I would acknowledge that. But I had not seen that in my research, and I've not seen a distinction of that type anywhere within the case law looking at occasional sale exceptions. So I would submit that I understand there may be a disagreement on this point, but that the ALJ applied the law correctly and found that the rentals can constitute a sale, that information was found within the submissions of the Rices in paragraph 3.
Thank you for your comments. I'll pass on to.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the taxpayer or the department? I just have one more. I think really the heart of this case is the number of boats that this particular business sells during a 12-month period, and nobody has proved to me that they've sold 1 boat or 20 boats. I just don't have clear information on whether they would be considered a retailer or not. I'm not sure the Rices are the ones that should be determining that, though, as a private citizen. So I think that's kind of where I'm stuck, is that I don't have any information from the retailer, or if they are a retailer, if they do this on occasion. It does make sense to me that they would sell boats as they upgrade their inventory, but I just don't have the number of boats that they've sold in the last 12 months or on an ongoing basis. So that's just my commentary.
May I offer some clarification?
Sure, Mr. Rice, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that was pointed out is an early letter that I wrote at the very beginning of this process, in which I did say that it appears that this business will rent boats, including said boat, and that has been quoted many times to me. At that point in time, I was making the argument that it should not matter whether or not the boat was rented, because it was an out-of-state sale, and there was some language revolving around that. With that said, I have now come to the conclusion that that my argument at that point in time was not a very good one. But with that said, I've never made the statement that this boat, the boat that I purchased, was rented. I said it appeared that they will rent it or would rent it based on their website. But after looking at their website a little more closely, and again, the website version we have is only a few months after I purchased the boat. So no one really knows exactly what the website said at the time of the purchase. But the best we can do is go off of what the website said a few months afterwards. And what that website says is they will rent boats, but they will not rent the type of boat that I purchased, a 23-foot surf boat. That boat that they have is only available for instruction purposes. They do have other little boats for rent, pontoon boats and ski boats and so on and so forth, but not the type of boat that I purchased. So again, the website makes very clear that they do not rent the boat of type that I purchased, and there's no evidence that the boat that I bought was ever rented. There is case law as far as the ability for a company that is in the business of selling things, and in this case, renting things, can still transact in an occasional sale. That was offered by the judge as an example. It was the aircraft company in which they sell aircraft kits, which is basically an aircraft, but they also owned and operated for their own use a Cessna aircraft, which then they sold. And that went all the way to the Nevada Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found that the sale of the Cessna did qualify as an occasional sale, even though it was sold by a business in the business of selling aircraft, because the type of aircraft of the Cessna was a different type compared to the other airplanes that they sell. So I think that is very similar to this case, in which the type of boat that I purchased was never rented. There is no offer for that type of boat to be rented on their website. And then as far as how often does this company sell boats, I don't know at this point in time, and I don't think anyone knows, but if you go onto their website, there is no boats offered for sale. And when we did purchase our boat from the seller, the way we found it was on just kind of a boat reselling online platform, like you would a used car or used anything else. And in most cases, a lot of those transactions are deemed occasional sales.
May I respond?
Yes, please, Mr. Beeds.
And again, Mr. Rice, I thank you for the further comment on that. I looked a little more at some of the questions that were brought up by the Commissioner and implicated by Mr. Wright's comment here. And it's in 372 that the definition of a sale is to include, or retail sale is to include a rental. Now that changed in 1955, so going to the Commissioner's previous comment, that has not changed in some time. So it appears that that rule was in place when the Commissioner's case was heard and during the Supreme Court's review of the New Mining Corporation case, though I've not reviewed it yet. To the second point of this being an out-of-state sale and going to some of what I heard in both Commissioners' comments or questions on the point, an out-of-state sale being analyzed here in Nevada, and how can we know, is that within 372, 185 Part 2, the use tax section defines that the tax imposed with respect to all property which was acquired out of state in a transaction that would have been taxable if the sale had occurred within the state, that is imposing the tax as though it was acquired here in the state. So I think that goes to the Commissioner's earlier question of why are we looking at this within the context of Nevada law? It's because the use tax is imposed as though it occurred in the state, and the occasional sale exception for Nevada law would only become implicated if we have Nevada use tax implied or made applicable. To the last point, which I believe goes to the Commissioner's questions and some of what Mr. Rice has shared, is that when there is an exception alleged, it is the taxpayer's burden to demonstrate that that exception applies. We are dealing with an out-of-state business, and we are, as I think one of the commissioners indicated, how you can go out of state and audit a business. I think looking at one of the reasons why it's the taxpayer's burden is to ensure that they obtain the information and have it prepared to present to the ALJ to ensure that they can demonstrate that the exception does apply. they are in a position to do so, and the statute has recognized that that is their burden. With that, I'd stand on a brief for the remaining points.
Thank you, Mr. Beeds. Any other questions from the commission? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Byram, I would like to make a motion.
Please.
And in the case of Zachary and Jennifer Rice, I would uphold their appeal of the administrative law judge's decision.
Is there a second?
Commissioner Johnson, I'll second it.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Byram, a second by Commissioner Johnson. I'll take a roll call vote, it sounds like. Commissioner Byram.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
No.
Commissioner Lippman.
No.
Commissioner Bursey.
No.
Commissioner Wren.
No.
Commissioner Witt.
No.
Okay, motion fails. Is there an alternative motion?
Commissioner Lippman moves to uphold or to deny the taxpayer's appeal of the administrative law judge's decision pursuant to NRS 360.245 and NAC 360.175.
Commissioner Bursey seconds.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Lippman and seconded by Commissioner Bursey to uphold the administrative law judge's decision. Commissioner Byram.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Lippman.
Yes.
Commissioner Bursey.
Yes.
Commissioner Wren.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
The commission has upheld the administrative law judge's decision. Thank you, Mr. Rice and Mr. Beeds, for your time. Director Hughes, next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is under 5D. This is pursuant to NRS 360.265, consideration for approval of the removal of the names of certain debtors, including the amount of tax, penalty, and interest from the records of the department for debts exceeding 5 years, due in collection being impossible or impracticable. For the department, we have Charlene Bernardo.
Good morning, Ms. Bernardo.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, I am Charlene Bernardo, Tax Program Supervisor with the department. The matter before this body is the removal of uncollectible tax, penalty, and interest from the department's active collection rolls. The last time this body acted on this issue was December 2020, in which this commission removed 679 accounts totaling $4,466,199.55 from active collections. This is an administrative move designed to make way for accounts that have a higher priority and collection life left in them. The department will still collect monies on these accounts through liens and other passive collection methods, but does not actively collect these accounts. Pursuant to NRS 360.265, the department is requesting removal of 613 accounts totaling $7,903,280 and uncollectible tax, penalty, and interest. All of these accounts are at least 5 years old and deemed uncollectible. Either the taxpayer was bankrupt, now out of bankruptcy, all claims submitted, and or the account is impracticable or impossible to collect for various reasons. I am happy to answer any questions from the commission.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the commissioners?
Ms. Bernardo, we received a subsequent email to update the list or correct the list. I didn't quite understand what that email was. Could you just explain it?
I think the only correction I had was I had 22 accounts with the highest dollar amount over 40,000, but it was actually 29 accounts that have the highest dollar amounts over 40,000.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So the list what was correct. It was just an analysis of the list.
Correct.
Thank you.
And Ms. Bernardo, my question is, dealing with collections constantly, do you turn these over to a collection agency? Do they truly get just written off and forgotten, or is there some kind of a database that we continue to follow these, even though they are fully charged off, I'm going to say, to losses?
We do not submit them to another collection agency. We do still keep them in our system. They're just not actively collected on. They could catch with liens and stuff like that.
So if somebody tries to open a new business under that name, they would have to repay those
That is correct.
taxes before we allowed them to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's good. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lippman has a follow-up to the chair's excellent question. So it's not just if they use the same name, but if they use a different name, I would assume we would somehow follow up if the owner is similar to a current owner. I see Ms. Arceo nodding.
Yes.
So I know I've asked that question before, and I appreciate the clarity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bernardo.
Thank you.
Okay, with that presentation, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion with a question too, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Oh, I apologize. Well, don't make the motion until you ask your question then. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I guess, listening to your question and Commissioners Lippman, would it be worth looking into and advising us on whether or not we should be pursuing these through some other course? Did that make sense?
I think you were breaking up at the very end. Could you restate that, Commissioner Wren? I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's probably my fault. Listening to your question and Commissioner's Lippman follow-up, would it be worthwhile for us to have the division look into whether or not we should be turning this over to some other type of collection agency, if that is feasible or just totally not worthwhile?
I don't believe it would be feasible. Yeah.
Good morning. For the record, Lizette Arceo, tax manager for the department. The department in the past has referred these accounts to the state controller's office. That's the only other body that we are per statute allowed to refer these to. We can't refer them to any outside agency due to our confidentiality statute. We can't basically sell or write off this debt and then have somebody else with our information that we've gained through the Nevada business registration or through other means. So that's the only other option we've had in the past. However, since 2015, the department has received a waiver. So we do not refer these accounts anymore, or we haven't since 2015 to the state controller's office, as we have our means to collect this debt. We have our collectors, our revenue officers. We do have our internal processes as far as liens and withholds. Once we find somebody, we do the domestications of judgments if they're out of state. So we have our own means to collect this debt.
Thank you. Much better answer than my question. Thank you very much. Having heard that, I will move to approve the request.
Commissioner Lippman seconds the motion.
I've got a motion and second to approve the removal of certain names and debtors exceeding 5 years. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, very good.
Mr.
Motion
Chairman?
passes. Yes, Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. I would just like to say thank you to the department, Ms. Bernardo, and it was at the suggestion of Commissioner Byram that the list be organized by dollar amount. So it makes it much easier to go through and see which accounts are significant versus which are $15. So thank you to the department for doing that.
Agree.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Director Hughes, informational items.
Yes, under item 6, informational items, we have 6A, penalty and interest waivers granted by the department for sales, use tax, modified business tax, and excise tax. And item 6B, approval and denial status report log for organizations created for religious, charitable, or educational purposes.
Is there any questions? Very good. Director Hughes, briefing.
So today I wanted to give you all an update on our Southern office consolidation. As an efficiency measure, the department requested in the 2021-22 budget to consolidate our Las Vegas and Henderson offices into one location. Department staff found located and has easy freeway access. The location is in a desirable business park close to the McCarran International Airport. And to further realize cost savings, the department chose to co-locate with the Cannabis Compliance Board and share a large public meeting training room, which can be partitioned off into 2 separate spaces. Additionally, the location is equipped with other suitable conference hearing rooms to facilitate the department's numerous meetings and ask the advisor trainings. The office space has the potential to accommodate department growth, and there is adequate parking for both employees and customers. Staff has done an incredible job making sure the taxpayers' needs are still met during this transition, and the new location is expected to be opening and servicing taxpayers by the end of December 2021. I also wanted to provide you with an update to the MBT refunds. To date, the department has issued 27,248 refund checks, totaling approximately $60.4 million. We have our last run of refund checks the week of December 13th. And to end my briefing, I wanted to let the commissioners know that Adrienne Roberts Larson is the department's new administrative deputy. Adrienne's start date was November 1st. We are happy to have her on the executive team, and she is doing an excellent job. And I also wanted to inform you that today is our compliance deputy, Terry Upton's last commission meeting. Terry is retiring December 31st, and she has been a tremendous asset to the department. We are going to miss her, but we wish her all the best in her retirement. And that concludes my briefing.
Terry, I see that you're on the line there, and I think I echo this from all of the commissioners. You know, your professionalism and knowledge will truly be missed, and we appreciate all of your service to every one of us in the state of Nevada, and sincerely thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know, I'd like to say how saddened I am to hear of Carol Ballardo's passing. She was such a force to be reckoned with, and I just remember her so fondly from my years with the department, and have always enjoyed her interaction with the department, and, you know, just her knowledge was incredible. And, you know, I'd also love to say that, you know, it's been such an honor and privilege to work with this department. The staff is just incredible. They're so hardworking and so dedicated to treating taxpayers fairly, and at the same time, making sure that the revenue is collected for the department or for the state. And the executive team is wonderful. Such a pleasure to work with them. And also the Nevada Tax Commission. I've been through a lot of chairs and a lot of members. And I just so appreciate all of you and the work that you do for the citizens of Nevada and the department. But anyway, thank you. I look forward to my new adventure.
Thank you, Terry. Have a great time. Good for you.
Thank you.
You've earned it.
Thank you.
Okay, our next meeting is January 24th, 2022. At this point, do I have any more public comment?
If anyone has public comment, please dial *9 or raise your hand to be put into the queue. I do not see any public comment.
Okay, are there any other items for future agendas from the commissioners?
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Bursey. I don't know if this is an item for a future agenda, but I've been thinking and wondering about the scope of redactions of taxpayer information that we have under our current policies. It seems to me that the scope of those redactions has been broadening over the years. I'm getting a lot more black on my papers, and sometimes it's information that I think is valuable, and I'm not understanding why we're not able to see it. For example, the type of employment that a taxpayer might have, or the name of the employer, similar spousal information, current and former addresses. Sometimes we see them and sometimes we don't. And I wonder if there's a policy concerning what comes out and what stays in. And unless things have changed drastically over the years, when you look at a bankruptcy petitioner's petition, what's redacted is a social security number, and other information that might be pertinent is there. So do we have a policy on redactions? Is this something we take up at a later meeting? If it's a complicated answer, I'm happy to wait.
Commissioner Bursey, yes, I would like to look into this matter for you, and I can get back to you at the next commission meeting with a thorough answer.
Thank you, Executive Director.
Or maybe even less redactions.
Exactly. Any other items? Any other comments?
Congratulations to Terry Upton and Ms. Adrienne Larson. Oops. Excuse me. For many years of service and for the promotion. Thank you.
Totally agree. And any other?
May I ask a question, Commissioner Byram?
Please.
Of the department, is there an update yet from the Attorney General or an opinion on the new excise tax start date, whether it's a stub year or not?
Commissioner Byram, yes. We have been instructed by the Attorney General's office that the statutes are clear, that the tax will be imposed on the full calendar year, starting January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Can I get a copy of that written up?
I can give you a copy that I have provided based on a question asked from industry.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. With that, hopefully you have an absolutely wonderful Christmas. Thank you to all of the staff at the Department of Taxation. Hope they have a wonderful holiday season, and we will see you next year. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.